Barnaby Brocket, Chapter 10. The Worst Jeremy Potts Ever. Alistair opened the mailbox and glanced at the bills and junk mail he held in his hand before noticing the postcard squashed between a flyer for a home cleaning company and a menu for a newly opened pizza delivery service. He recognised the handwriting immediately, and his heart beat a little faster as he started to read it. In the 9 days since Barnaby had floated away, the Brocket household had become a decidedly difficult place to be. Henry and Melanie were causing all sorts of bother, insisting that the police be called to search for their missing brother. But when Alistair told them that both he and their mother might be in serious trouble if the truth came out, they became a little less eager. "The authorities take a very dim view of these things," he said. "Why, before you know it, we could be up in court, and you two could be living in foster homes. And anyway, it's not as if it's our fault that Barnaby isn't here any more. After all, he was the one who took his rucksack off." This was the official explanation that Alistair and Eleanor had agreed upon. Barnaby had taken the bag off his shoulders, complaining yet again about the weight of the thing, and before he knew it, he was up in the air. Eleanor tried to save him, but she couldn't jump high enough. He'd been told 1,000 times, they said, how important it was to keep it on, but he was too willful to listen. Everything that had happened, they insisted, was Barnaby's own fault. But this was not enough to satisfy Henry and Melanie, who missed their brother dreadfully, and were causing scenes in front of their parents every evening, insisting that more be done to find him. Neither of them imagined for a moment that their parents weren't telling the truth. After all, there had only been one witness to the terrible thing that had happened at Mrs. Macquarie's chair, and that was Captain W.E. Johns. And it wasn't as if he could expose the lie. If only the child had been normal, Alistair thought, looking up and down the street at the rows of even hedges and perfectly manicured lawns. Was it too much to ask a child to fit in? He remembered when he was Barnaby's age. He'd done everything he could not to stand out from the crowd. But it wasn't possible, not with all that attention-seeking that his own parents had insisted upon. He felt sick in his stomach when he remembered how desperate they had been for everyone to pay attention to their son. His father, Rupert, dreamed of being an actor, his mother, Claudia, of being an actress. They'd met in drama school in their early 20s when they were quite convinced that they were going to become international film stars. "I only want to work with the very best directors," said Claudia, who had only ever had a small part in a television advertisement for an artificial sweetened breakfast cereal in which she played a spoon. "And with actors who really respect the craft," added Rupert, who had won the role of a thug in a cafe in an episode of an early evening soap opera when he was 16 years old. Stardom somehow eluded them, though, and so when Alistair was born, they developed a new ambition to turn their son into a star instead. From the time he learned to walk, the boy was dragged to auditions for commercials, plays, and television drama series, despite the fact that he had no interest in taking part in such things and would have preferred to stay at home, playing with his friends. A naturally shy boy, he hated standing up in front of complete strangers and having to perform a scene from Oliver or sing a version of With a Little Bit of Blooming Luck in a ridiculous Cockney actor's accent. "You'll do it, or you won't get any dinner," Claudia told him when he was 11 years old and complaining about being forced to audition for the part of Jeremy Potts in an amateur dramatic production of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. "But I don't want to be Jeremy Potts," complained Alistair. "I want to be Alistair Brocket." "And who is Alistair Brocket?" cried Rupert, appalled that his son would allow such a great opportunity to pass him by. "Nobody. Nobody at all. Is that how you want to spend your life? Without anyone paying you any attention? Look at your mother and me. We could have been giants of the film industry, but we gave it all up to become the parents of an ungrateful little boy. And this is the thanks we get." Alistair said nothing to this. He knew very well that they hadn't given anything up for him, that they'd been trying to be actors for years before he was born, so their lack of success was nothing to do with him. To his horror, and owing to the lack of better choices, Alistair won the part. For weeks he attended rehearsals reluctantly, having great difficulty remembering his lines and always dreading the moment when it was his turn to sing. It was bad enough, with just the other cast members and director watching. But whenever he thought of a full audience sitting out there in a darkened auditorium, it was enough to make him want to throw up. "I don't want to do it," he told his parents the day of the play was due to open. "Please don't make me." But nothing he could say could make them change their minds, and a few hours later he went on stage with his legs feeling like jelly. Over the course of the 2 hours that followed, at a conservative estimate, he remembered less than 5% of his lines, fell off the stage twice, tripped over his co-star's feet 6 times, and gave every impression of being about to wet his pants when Grandpa Potts declared that up from the ashes grow the roses of success. The local newspaper was scathing in its review, and the next day in school he was ridiculed by his classmates. "Never again," he told his parents when he went home that evening, wishing the whole ground would swallow him up. "I'm not going back on stage ever, and you can't make me. It's humiliating. I am never, ever going to stand out from the crowd again."